We are joined on this episode by a talented gentleman who has cut trailers for everything from spring and summer of '84 to The Greasy Strangler and Girl on the Third Floor. He's also the founder of Electric Owl Creative, who served as editor for Paper Street's own horror western feature, The Pale Door. He is Greg McLennan. Greg, thanks so much for joining us on the program here, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm excited. This is our first editor. Like I think we've had people that have done editing before, but I don't think we've had an actual full-blown editor on the show yet.
A person who made money doing it.
Yes.
By trade, yeah.
I buy sandwiches with edit money.
Exactly. So the way we usually start is just by asking the very basic question of how did you get the bug for filmmaking? Was there a person that inspired you growing up, or a particular movie or experience that kind of set you down the path?
I mean, I always really loved editing, and it's going to sound like one of those childhood stories that everybody hears, but like one of my best friends growing up in Canada, and then also another best friend in Texas, like their dads had video cameras. And so all weekend long, it was like, let's make a movie. And it was just in camera editing. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then I always wanted to get into filmmaking because I was just like an avid cinema lover. And then I went to UT and I got so frustrated because they don't let you edit right away that I just started editing my own stuff. And I found myself going like, I just lost 10 hours to editing something. I think there might be something here that I like.
Were you always into like genre films too, since a lot of your work is in kind of the horror or just genre-ish stuff? I
mean, like I've done documentaries, I've done foreign films. There is a lot of genre in there. I think I've always loved genre. Like my brother would rent all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets and it's like, hey, we're going to watch these this weekend. But like I also grew up on like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Sylvester Stallone movies. And so I love all movies. But I don't necessarily know if I have a pull towards genre or if genre has a pull towards me, but that's where I am. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, it's funny because some people always have like, maybe an experience or something like they, remember being scared by a particular movie growing up or associate something with their parents or something. Like I can relate to the Stallone and Jean-Claude Van Damme action movie. I mean, that's just what I watched with my dad growing up.
Yeah, like those are my weekends. It was like pizza and Cobra, but also like the first time that I saw The Gate, like I'm still terrified that there's a man that's going to burst out of my walls and accost me and that there's little demons living in my backyard. And I saw that movie whenever I was like 8.
Since you said pizza and Cobra, I have to ask, do you cut your pizza with scissors?
Yeah. Well, how do you eat your pizza? You need to eat a responsible amount of pizza, one little bit at a time, so you can keep that swole body.
Oh, yeah. No, pizza and responsibility do not go hand in hand.
It's called pizza microdosing. Stallone wrote a whole book on it. It's not true. I'm making this entirely up.
Oh, no.
Greg, you mentioned that editing was one of the first kind of like magic things about the filmmaking process, even via, in-camera stuff as a kid. But is there something about Austin or UT in particular that got you, involved in that film program? Or was there something about the Austin film scene maybe that you were aware of that got you to go there above other colleges?
I mean, I always came up to Austin because I moved to Corpus Christi whenever I moved from Canada to Texas, and I hated it there and I wanted to get out as soon as I could. And I heard that Austin was a place that did not suck as bad as Corpus Christi, Texas. So I did well in school. Got into UT, but even before then, like I would drive up to go to like punk rock shows at emos and stuff because I was really into the punk scene in high school. And so like I got pretty familiar with the town. And then whenever I moved here, I met my brother's like friend who was like, oh, you got to go to the Draft House and check it out. And then me and my buddy, we just started going to Weird Wednesdays, like back at Old Colorado, whenever you would go at 12:01 on a Wednesday and it was free and there was like 8 people in there and 4 of them were homeless and you just watched like the weirdest movies ever. And it just kind of like all steamrolled from there, where it was just like, I'm getting the best education on something that nobody will ever teach me about, and it's free. And so I think just kind of like opening up that world, like I fell in love with the Austin film scene. And like everybody else who lives in Austin, I just wanted to somehow be a part of the Alamo Draft House. And I was lucky enough to have that happen. And it was pretty early on whenever there were still like 3 theaters and they didn't have like a video department or anything. And I was like, hey, I can do this for you guys. And so they let me just start editing for them. And it was just kind of off to the races after that, where I tricked one person into letting me edit and then it wasn't bad. So I got to keep doing it.
The old fake it till you make it adage rings true.
I mean, that's absolutely true to any level of successful person that I've ever met. If you talk to anybody, they're like, oh, yeah, no, I lied to get here. And then I substantiated it by getting here.
Exactly. Did you explore some other avenues of filmmaking while you were at UT, or did you consider another path at any point, or was it because you got in early with the Draft House, you kind of just knew editing was the path?
I mean, I didn't get to the draft. Like, weirdly enough, I was in casting right out of college, which was not a great job, and it was doing it for like reality television. But I just was trying to get like my foothold in anywhere, and then the Draft House job kind of came upon me, and so I jumped into that. I mean, I always wanted to do editing. Like, I went to film school, took the film school classes and the film theory classes, was learning cinematography and all the stuff that you have to learn. But like the whole time I was just like, I want to get to the editing part, but like they put it so far away from the beginning of what you're doing. And like freshman college me was already on like my cracked version of Premiere and just trying to like make stuff all the time. So that by the time I got to actually the editing class, I was like, this is boring and I hate this. And so I just kept editing like my own stuff with my friends on the side.
That's awesome. So in some of the various jobs that you've had, what would you say has kind of informed you the most or helped your editing career the most?
I definitely think that some of the foundations of it was whenever I would do like the old Alamo montages, whenever they were like 3-4 minute like musical montages with like 10 movies inside of them. It taught me a lot about the value of match action and like having a real natural movement to your eye focus. And I really love doing stuff where like if somebody moves their hands to the top right of the frame, the next shot, if it's got somebody's head there that's talking, that's great because that person like did a big gesture to go look over here. So your next shot, everybody's already paying attention to that line. And whenever you're doing like the montaging of, 10 movies, you start to find all these weird connective tissues where you can make people seem like they're all in the same movie. And so that became like a really fun thing for me. And then I think like the most challenging thing was whenever I started working for Draft House Films, because I was their in-house trailer editor. So whatever they bought, I had to make a trailer for. And that could be anything from like the movie Spring, which you would think is a relatively straightforward trailer, to like The Tribe, which is a Norwegian sign language movie where no dialogue is spoken and there's no subtitles. So every job was a different hard job for them because I was constantly juggling genres and style of films and, world cinema.
So yes, as a former Austinite myself, anyone who has been to the Draft House knows that one of the unique things about the experience is the often hilarious pre-roll programming, which you said you've had a hand in different parts of, which, they feature like selected scenes from montages that relate to the feature and just clips of all sorts, even some of the actors, whatever. Do you have a particular pre-roll or montage that you might be particularly proud of, one that you put together?
Oh man, I got to think about that. I really like some of the old ones. It's weird to go back and watch them now because they feel so long and I can't believe people enjoyed them for as long as they did or polite enough to be quiet during them. But I don't know. I remember like one of the first ones that I did because it was back whenever, everybody was kind of riding dirty and we didn't understand the full legality of everything. And so I used Sam Cooke's Shake. And I like distinctly remember it having like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, like Possession with Sam Neill and like a bunch of like wild stuff. There was The Manchurian Candidate, and it was really funny to have such a joyous song with such really serious cinema in it. But I also really loved like doing the February ones where you could try to make every movie seem romantic to tie into the montage, even if we're showing stuff like Terminator and stuff. Like they're always just fun. Like I just always got like, I fell in love with all the movies again while I was doing it. And it was probably a function of the process that then that like excitement would channel through. But yeah, like, there's a handful of them that I still like think about and I go, oh man, that was fun.
No, there's some definitely great ones. Also, you guys always would find some really obscure song or a YouTube video that I'd never seen. And Guardians of the Galaxy a few years ago had like a weird raccoon jingle that my wife and I still sing to this day. I don't know who did that one, but
it's crazy. The Draft House video department used to be me and this guy, Tommy, who was also a great editor in his own right. And we would just split up the duties of it, but he was predominantly pre-show and I was predominantly like making the like marketing material stuff.
Gotcha.
But then we hired this dude that worked at Scarecrow up in Seattle, and he moved to Austin because he used to just send a hard drive with all of the weird, obscure stuff that he would just like get off like Turkish VHSs and right. digitize it, send it to Tommy, and then Tommy would put it in the pre-show. And then whenever we were able to expand the video department, we were like, let's hire the guy that sends us all the weird stuff because he can just give us all the weird stuff.
Exactly. You mentioned doing some of the marketing stuff too. You also have been a programmer for some of the really cool events that some local folks we know in Austin have done, which include like the Tom Cruise Marathon. I think he called it Cruise Control, and like a Nick Cage one and stuff. Is there an event that might be a favorite of yours that you happen to program, whether it was a marathon or a particular one-off?
I always say Van Damage because it was the first time that I raised my hand in the programming room. And I go, hey, can I do a marathon? And they said, what is it? And I said, Van Damage. And they go, what is that? I go, it's where I show back to back to back to back Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. And they're like, that's a terrible idea. No one's going to come. And
Draft House.
I had full faith.
That's exactly the
I had full faith and confidence that I could pick good Jean-Claude Van Damme movies to maintain people's interest. I was really rewarded because like the last movie of the night, I insisted on getting a 35 millimeter print of Lionheart. And one of the other programmers was like, you want to hang your hat on Lionheart? And I go, it's the best one, man. And I introduced, and I don't tell anybody what the movie is before you start to watch it. You have to see the title card and then go, oh, that's what I'm watching. And so Lionheart came up and it was a very muted response. And then like at the end of Lionheart, I'm sorry if you've not seen the movie Lionheart, but Jean-Claude Van Damme's down on the ground and his best buddy bet all of his money on the other guy. And Van Damme's like, you made the wrong bets. And then everybody starts clapping as like the triumph of the human spirit wills himself to beat the shit out of this dude in a triple round house kick style. And everybody in the theater started clapping in unison with the people in the movie. And I was like, these people got won over by Lionheart. And it was like one of those just like goosebump moments. But also like the Nicolas Cage marathon when Nicolas Cage showed up was pretty fun.
I can imagine.
So amazing. And I have a special soft spot for Lionheart because nobody's seen it. And I watched it so much with my dad growing up, and there's some really cool fight scenes in it. And, you know, they're ridiculous. Like him in the leotard in the pool. And
oh, that's the best one.
Right? That's the best fight.
It's like the Paradise Alley of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. It's overly earnest and schmaltzy, but it works.
Oh,
unless you hate the movie Paradise Alley, then I take that back entirely.
Well, I like to tell people, it's like, you know how Fight Club doesn't actually give you enough, like doesn't fulfill its promise of the actual Fight Club. You should watch Lionheart instead.
It's literally like he starts as a bum fighter and then he moves up to fighting like dudes in kilts surrounded by cars. Yeah,
it's a Cinderella story.
It really is.
So in general, though, your role at the Draft House, both as a programmer, as an editor, it just sounds like a ton of fun. And as a movie fan, it's kind of like feels like it would be kind of a dream come true to have the opportunity to do that. But imagine
you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that wasn't so glamorous or like was surprisingly challenging, like, or even just coming up with things that are going to surprise and delight the Draft House audience, which is, you know, a pretty savvy audience.
I would say that you would think so, but honestly, like. Maybe this is a bad thing to say. It's all very selfishly motivated where I just think of something that would be incredibly fun to me and like, you know, 4 of my friends that I know that are going to come. And then I just kind of go, well, we're a pretty good litmus test because like if I'm excited about it, other people would be right. And so like it was always kind of a trust fall with the audiences because like I didn't ever try to program for people because that kind of felt like whenever you try to give people what they want, it's whenever people go, I don't know if I want this. And so you just kind of try to surprise yourself and keep yourself excited and then hope other people can go along for the ride, or you can jump in front of a microphone and get them excited about it right before you have to get them to watch 5 movies.
Yeah. So program all the Lionhearts. Like I get it.
I do that. Like the Nicolas Cage marathon, every single year I played more and more of the movie Wind Talkers to where I think one year I ended up playing 15 minutes of the movie Wind Talkers before I cut it off and go, no, this is a joke again. We're not watching Wind Talkers. And so it's like, yeah, like I always just would be like, what's something stupid that would potentially piss people off, but also make them laugh.
Captain Corelli's mandolin.
Yeah, never did it, but I did get a 35 millimeter trailer to play.
Right. Well, let's segue into that, your profession and with trailers. So just in editing in general, are there elements of your role as an editor that would surprise, you know, the layman or any folks who might not be familiar with the job and the ins and outs of said job?
I mean, like starting out in editing, like the function of editing is relatively simple, but like the task that you're asked of oftentimes requires a lot of math that I don't think people are necessarily aware of. Because like early on, like I was doing like all sorts of advanced math because we would get a 25 frame per second film and then we need to convert that to 23,976, but now the subtitles don't match. And so you're just constantly like juggling a bunch of stuff. And so I think like maybe I underestimated the technical aspect that I then obviously acclimated to pretty quickly because my mind was just like, I can edit stuff. But even then, like whenever we're showing stuff at the draft house and we're putting stuff on the screen, like back in the day, we would just buy a bunch of Blu-rays and rip them and then convert them to where we could use them just for the advertising stuff. Cause it's not like you can, like YouTube wasn't great for pulling HD clips at the time.
So if you were to give a first-time director some advice when it comes to editing, or maybe working with an editor, or, you know, whoever you're kind of working with too, primarily with like trailers, for example, whoever from the film team, whether it be the director, marketing.
I generally work directly with the distributor, and because I work with a lot of smaller indie distributors, they are very good. And like Draft House Film and Neon, to a degree, like did this where they would be like, hey, we're going to involve the director in this process, to where they kind of act like the guardian, because you don't ever want to directly interact with the director, because then the director will start to tell you what to do and you'll want to listen to him. But the distributor is the person that's paying you for them to be happy. So it can muddy the waters pretty easy. But yeah, like, I mean, like if I think one of the biggest problems that I find whenever I get into a frustrating position, whenever I'm editing movie trailers, is that you come up with a really good idea. The distributor really likes it. You execute it to give them like a version 1 to be like, now let's discuss what we would like to change. And the director will then get involved, and they don't get to be a part of your pitch that then you go off and make. And so they're just seeing something for the first time. And if they don't like it, it's hard, especially when like they're trying to condense their movie into a trailer to sell it to people, versus like subscribing to the concept of, I understand this is a piece of marketing and it is an entirely different piece of media, art, whatever you want to call it, than my film. But does it facilitate getting people to watch my movie? And I think sometimes there's like a bit of a disconnect there with filmmakers. That, or sometimes you'll meet directors where you'll watch their movie and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's bad, but sometimes a director has a disconnect between the movie that they set out to make and the ultimate product that they have now. And you can make a piece of marketing for what that product is, but they're like, that's not what my movie's about. You're like, yes, it is. I just watched it.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that. Well, when it comes to whoever maybe you're interfacing with on the feedback, you know, whoever's giving you notes, whether it be, you know, somebody on distribution, or if you're, you know, editing a narrative film outside of trailers, if, you know, you're just getting feedback from a director on a piece of narrative, do you have any advice for editors kind of going through that experience for the first time of kind of taking those notes and how to kind of work through it with grace?
I mean, yeah, that's it. Like, you just got to suck some shit and realize that you don't have an ego. Like, you can, like, everything, like, it's hard to be an editor because people are like, oh, I made a bunch of decisions today. It was hard. And it's like an editor has to make a million decisions in a given week, where they're constantly going, this is my conviction. That's where the cut goes. This is how this is coming together. And then somebody goes, that's stupid and I hate it. Like, don't take that personally. Like, they're not telling you you're stupid and that they hate it. They're saying that this isn't making the movie better. Let's come up with a solution together to, like, do you have more ideas because this one's not working? And I think it's just like, realize that you got hired to be an editor, and like, you can be the most talented editor in the world, or you can be an okay, like, physical editor, but you can be a great editor mentally. And it's just all about, like, your job is to make the movie better every single day. And if you ever forget that, or you start to take like personal slights, you're like, no, somebody's just saying the movie's not better right now. Let's all work towards making it better all the time. And I think like that's a healthy mentality to do it, because then whenever somebody tells you a suggestion or tells you to change something, like, you can kind of get on board to be like, okay, well, how does that make that better? And then you can understand what their note is, as opposed to just instantly being reactionary. Like, don't ever be reactionary. Don't ever talk back to anybody. Like, process all those things. And if you really don't agree with them, you can talk about them, but have your justification be that about why it makes the movie better for you, or what your intent is there. Because if you get defensive, it doesn't say anything about the movie. It just says you're difficult to work with.
I feel like that's good advice for anybody's career, really, is to drop the ego and focus on the product or whatever the end goal is.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, you're the editor. You're like the last person that gets to touch it on the way to the movies. And every single person that has contributed all of their efforts, whether it's building a prop, showing up for craft services, or, you know, pouring your heart out on screen, like, all those people are depending on you because they put their all into it. Like, you got to do it too, man.
And one of the things, you know, we were chatting about before we started recording was just there's a lot of people with different philosophies about whether or not the editor should ever be on set. because a lot of people say they'll lose all their objectivity in the editing room if they were there and saw, oh man, it took half the day to get this shot, so we got to keep it in the film somehow, and you kind of start to get emotionally attached. What would you say to that philosophy, and kind of, if you are on set, how do you maintain objectivity once you're in the editing room?
Yeah, I mean, like Walter Murch be damned, who is a vital proponent of never setting foot on a set. I like it. Like, I think it's great. I like, if I could tell a director what is my best advice for an editor, or the concept of getting an editor, I'm like, get him before you start shooting, because that person is editing in their mind while they're reading your script. So they can help you devise shot lists. They can look at your storyboards and tell you what's going to work, what's not going to work. If they're on set, they can see you putting a shot together and know exactly where that's going to go into the movie. And if you miss a shot, having an editor around to go, hey, go ahead and pick me up one of those, because this will connect these two pieces, because I know that you love that. And in order to get there, I just need you to do, whether it's a shot of a hand or a slider following a character, like those things can be invaluable, because after you wrap for that day, chances are you're not going back there and you can't do it again. And so if you just give an editor a hard drive, or however you get it to them whenever your film's done, they're locked into what you shot and they didn't have any input. So they just get to try to make what you have work, as opposed to using them as an asset to make you better at your job.
And transitioning specifically to the art of the trailer, how would you say, trailer editing differs from other forms of editing, whether it's features or commercials or anything? Like, what's unique about trailer editing?
I mean, commercials, I don't want to say this necessarily, but they're the worst. And you will not have a fun time making commercials, because everybody has an opinion, and people who are not involved in the artistic process will want to be involved in it. And you'll end up editing it 8 ways to Sunday and not even recognize what it is at the end of it. Trailers are really fun. And it really kind of depends on who you're working with and the level of trust and freedom that you have, because at the same time, like, that a feature editor is, the last guy to touch the movie on the way out the door. A trailer editor is the person that's introducing it to people. And it's a responsibility to make sure that people go like, hey, I'm at least going to learn more about that based off of what you made with their art. It's definitely a different beast. You have to work really fast a lot of the time, because most people, whenever they're coming to you to ask for a trailer, they already know when they want to have that trailer. And your job is to go, I can do it in that time. So it can be really stressful, but it's really fast paced. Whereas like working on a feature, like it's a long burn, where you're not necessarily stressed out and freaking out all the time, but it's for a longer period of time. Whereas a trailer is just kind of a very compressed version of that.
When you started editing trailers for features, was there anything that really surprised you about the process that you didn't expect?
I don't know, because like it was transitioning from like making like those 4-minute musical montages for the Draft House, where it was kind of like, it's a big trailer advertising a bunch of things. Like it would be like it wasn't this good, but like an Oscar reel or something. And then you would also make these like little 30-second, just we're showing this one movie at this one theater, so we made a little 30-second trailer. And you kind of like going through movies over and over again, as much as watching them does it. Like whenever you start to cut, you can just go like, oh, I can jump to like minute 16. And I know that I'm probably going to get some good expository dialogue and stuff like that. But like getting into trailers, it was very kind of intimidating, but also because I worked with like a very long timeline of a full movie to try to like hunt for what I want, it was kind of exciting. It was just fun to like have only one movie to work with, because whenever you have a limited resource, you become more creative, I think. And I think it was just like every time you're working on a different movie and you're like, I don't edit like this, but then you find yourself using different kind like feather cuts or whatever it is. And you start to like realize that all these little tricks that you've learned and you've done maybe once, you find practical applications for all of them. And it's really fun to like throw them into stuff.
I just had a specific question that I've always kind of wondered about. Like, do you often, in what state do you usually get trailers? Like, how finished is the movie when you like, and do you get a chance like watch the whole movie and then kind of like earmark things and call them out? Yeah. It's like, oh, that's a good line, I'm going to use that. Or sometimes get it, limited information and have to come up with something.
I've gotten like a 15-minute reel, like where somebody had cut a marketing like reel to where it's got a bunch of the cool pieces of the movie that are just a 15-minute thing. And it was like, can you make a trailer from that? You're like, yep. But I've also watched a movie that had 75% green screen rooms or sets. And you're just like, all right, like I don't even have a concept for what your movie looks like, but you can kind of still put together a pitch based off of the story that's there. And some distributors will do that to trailer editors in order for you to say what shots that you want in the trailer. And then they'll go to their VFX house to go, these are the 5 shots that you guys have to work on because they're going to be in the final trailer. And so more often than not, I get a full feature film that's complete, buttoned up and done or very close to done. And so you can watch it, see what it is and put together a pitch for it. But yeah, every now and then you'll get those weird green screen parties or like big chunk marketing reels or somebody who's like, I'm making a documentary. It's 6 hours right now, but I need a trailer to help sell it to a distributor. Can you make me a marketing trailer?
Have you seen that? I mean, I don't know how long you've been at the game professionally, but it feels like you hear about the bigger tentpole movies having so much previs done before a director even gets hired sometimes. That are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't work quite at that level. I had a buddy who worked, different guy, but he was up in Portland and he worked on several Leica trailers and he would get, sketch animatics. He would get temp stuff. He would only get certain portions to where it would have spoilers pulled out and stuff like that. And like he had to construct stuff like that. And he would put together those chunks of finished animation with the chunks of the animatics and everything like that. And so you beat the whole thing out. And then they just give you the shots so you can drop them in whenever they have them animated or rendered or whatever it is.
Right. Have you gotten as deep as actually requesting like a cleaner line of dialogue be ADR'd, or they actually submit to you like, hey, we'd also like this line that's not in the movie, but it's a button for a scene or something?
A very rare case where I have gotten an ADR on a trailer, but I have 100% had that happen to me, and it was wonderful. Because you go like, it's just very muddy in your mix. Is there any chance that you could call this actress who shot this movie 1 year ago to say the line again? And I'll send a video of her face so she can try to like match it.
Right. Can you please get Christopher Nolan's hearing checked? Because we're all very concerned.
I mean, I only do Dark Knight Rises remix trailers now with only Bane dialogue.
Right. Don't watch Tenet because I truly was questioning if that man can.
I got that in 4K at home, man.
So
no problems.
Yeah. Do you
fight about it now?
No. Ever since Dark Knight Rises, there's been weird choices he's made, Dunkirk included, where like the dialogue will get muffled in the mix, and it seems by design. And I'm like, maybe he really is a robot, as he's accused of often. But do you think there's a steep learning curve for anyone who would transition from narrative editing to trailer editing, or vice versa?
I mean, if you'd asked me before I ever edited a movie, I would be like, I don't really have a concept of how to edit a feature. And so like I told Kuntz this, I was like, are you sure you want me to edit The Pale Door? Because I make trailers. But he was very, very confident that the tool set was within me. I just, had never gotten the opportunity. And then whenever you get down to do it, like, and you stare at all of that footage and you're wanting to die, you just kind of look at it and go, wait, I'm just going to make like 15 short films. I've made a short film before, and just every scene, just make it the best little short film that it can be, and make sure that every piece of it's meaningful. Every piece of it's contributing to what the whole is. And like the more that you put of those next to each other, you start to like see the themes develop of the film that they put into the movie. And then you start to just play around with that in order to make that exacerbated.
Yeah, it does feel like it goes against your muscle memory a bit, though, to let things breathe, because that's the opposite of the trailer mentality.
Right. And that is the number one note that I get from every director that I've ever worked with. And that's, hey, you can give it time to breathe. And that's the number one thing that I say whenever they offer to hire me. I'm like, you're going to have to tell me to slow down.
Greg, this assembly cut came in at 70 minutes. What are you doing?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
like a tight 72.
Oh, man. I mean, me personally, I wish all movies were under 90 minutes. So,
I mean, like that's how my girlfriend and I make a whole lot of film decisions. And it's 100% based off of the fact that I'm like, I don't really want to watch that, but if it's a tight 90, I can do it.
Yeah, that's why I'm always like 87 minutes feels like the perfect length for a movie. And maybe that's why I like slashers so much, that they tend to fit within that time frame.
It's real funny, too, because 72 minutes is what was considered a feature length film. And so oftentimes you'll see really short movies have very impressive credit sequences in order to push them past the 72-minute mark so they can play in theaters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When they're stretching their time, where it's like a lot of like public domain type footage over music and
Right.
really setting the stage for this.
I'm just letting you know what era it was.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of transitioned beautifully into the next section, which we're going to talk a bit about, kind of editing kind of your first feature with The Pale Door. Sounds like, it might have been intimidating at first, but once you started to break it down, it really became manageable in a sense, treating, each scene or each, 15 minutes or so as a short film. Now that you've had a chance to do that, I mean, did you kind of like miss the process of editing trailers, or are you like, I want to do more features now?
I mean, that's a thing. Like, whenever you're going to edit a feature, generally somebody's like, hey, I'll pay you this much a week to do it for this many weeks. And you're like, that's great. I'll do that. Whereas for a trailer, somebody goes, I need a trailer in 2 weeks. I have this much money. Can you do it? And you're like, yeah. And so you're racing to the finish line to make sure that you can get that thing delivered on time in order to get the money that those people have promised you. And then the day that you said you deliver it to them, you deliver it to them. And immediately after they go, thank you, your mind goes back to, oh, what am I going to do now? And so you have to find another one of those high stress situations. So I'd say like, I prefer editing features, but you get more abundance of trailer work. I mean, they're both really fun. And I think like I'm editing a new feature now and I'm having a really great time with it. But I also like go like, and at the end of this, you're probably going to make some more trailers. And like, I'll be happy to be back in it. But I also learned Avid for the feature that I'm working on right now. And I'm a Premiere person. So I think I just miss my old tool set.
Oh, I was going to ask that question. Then I was like, oh, is that too much? Like, what camera did you shoot on? Or what was your budget to ask, like, what system do you edit on?
Yeah, I mean, I taught myself Premiere out of high school on like a laptop that was garbage. And then they taught me Final Cut at school. My first internship was at KNVA, Austin's WB NBC affiliate. And they were Avid. And I didn't understand it, and it was very confusing to me, but like I could, fumble through it. And then ever since, like anytime anybody's ever asked me what I'm editing on, because it has some sort of delivery contingent, and I tell them that I work in Premiere, everybody goes, oh, thank God. So I've never felt kind of compelled. I've played around with DaVinci and done some stuff in there. And like I said, I relearned Avid and then obviously learned a lot more Avid working on this feature, but I prefer Premiere.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's becoming more ubiquitous, it feels like, in the past 5-10 years for sure. When Final Cut it seemed like was taking over the world previously, I think Adobe's ability to transition between them all with After Effects and such.
Final Cut made that misstep with their, they made the consumer version of Final Cut. People were like, we don't need this. And then they go, oh no, we have the professional one. They're like, too late, we're already in Premiere now.
Yeah, you blew it.
Yeah, that was just timed with Final Cut's decision. And then Adobe releasing kind of like the new Creative Suite with, through the Creative Cloud. And it was like, wow, I can get all these programs that interact with each other for
$30 a month. Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's a game changer.
So with Pale Door, would you mind telling the folks how you came to being the editor for the film?
Yeah, I mean, I had known Koontz for a couple of years. I knew him from his video game days because he worked with a friend of mine. And I bumped into him at my friend's birthday party and we got along really well. And I thought that was kind of it. And then I would bump into him here and there because he would come to the draft house. And I was like, oh, man, this guy's really nice. And then he told me that he was shooting this movie. And I was like, oh, man, it would be my greatest dream in life is to die in a film. I don't have any aspirations for being an actor, but I thought it would be fun to get to like be covered in blood and do the whole thing for like a day.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, I'll 100% make that happen. So went up to Oklahoma. He told me not to shave my beard for a very long time, put me in a costume and stabbed me in the throat. And then we were sitting because we were shooting overnight and it was, lunchtime at like 1 a.m. or something. And I was sitting with Koontz and Koontz was like, what do you think about editing this movie? And I was completely taken aback because I did not think that I was there to have that discussion. And my first response was like, I'm very excited. And my first impulse is to say yes. But every other impulse in my body goes, can I tell you this after I get back home? So I have some time to think about it. And then, I thought about it and obviously I got to be on set for 2 days, not in the capacity of an editor, but just kind of like seeing it all. And I'd read the script and I'd liked it prior to showing up for my death scene just because Koontz let me read it. And then, I just decided like you can't stare opportunity in the face. So I said yes and said, whatever you don't know, you'll figure out along the way. But you know some things that you can help contribute to this. And so as long as I thought that about myself, that I felt comfortable saying yes to do it.
Yep, Mr. No Ego over here wanted to edit himself getting killed on screen. That's what I hear.
No, if you watch if you watch The Pale Door, I actually die slightly off screen.
Oh.
He actually does.
There was a shot that was being filmed while I was dying, and I was like, man, I feel sorry whoever's going to edit this, because these things will not cut together. But it was not my place to say anything at that moment. And then whenever I got the footage, no matter how I tried to cut it together, I was like, yep, this does not cut.
So you cut yourself out of the movie.
Exactly.
Going forward, you do feel comfortable being the guy to say that, though, now, I would hope.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
whether you're on set as an editor or not.
Yeah, if you're on set as an extra, I wouldn't say you should go ahead and tell the director that that's not going to cut, because it's just going to slow everybody down and piss everybody off.
Exactly.
But if you're an editor on set, like, don't stop everything, but 100% pull your director aside and go, hey, or like the scripty, like scripties are gods. Like, I love my script supervisor.
Awesome. So that concludes our formal part of the interview. We're going to jump into the second half, which is what we call the rapid fire 15, which is not very rapid. Might be fire. I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know. I think Greg is short on opinions. I think he's going to have answers for all these.
Yeah, I think he's going to be quick.
As we tell folks all the time, it's a little bit like a genre bent Proust questionnaire, and it's not a cool test. There's no points. It's just whatever comes to mind first. Don't think too hard about it.
I will do my absolute best.
We've tried to come up with some questions tailored to you, so we'll see how this goes.
I'm just so curious to hear what questions could be lobbed at me that you guys perceived of me without meeting me.
You know, social media stalking, that kind of thing.
We talk to your family.
No, I did a little bit of due diligence with like trying to check social media and then asking Cameron if he knew anything about you other than surface level stuff. And as usual, Cameron was a 0. It's like, no, he likes everything. Man.
Yeah, he's been to my house.
He could have told me like, well, posters are on your wall, but no, we know a little bit now. We've gotten some bits about your action and genre roots. So
Sean was just looking for an excuse to throw Cameron under the bus. So
yeah, screw that guy.
All right, question number 1. Fuck Cameron. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Boy, that's a tough one. Probably like Time Bandits.
Nice. What is
I used to watch it all the time as a kid.
Yeah, I think that influenced a lot of people's childhood, like some of the imagery from it. What is your ultimate comfort movie? Like your warm blanket of a movie?
Gosh, the name is leaving me. It's Preston Sturges. It's Peter Fonda. They go on a boat, and gosh, why can't I say the name of it? But it's a Preston Sturges movie.
Lady Eve?
Yes, thank you so much.
Lady Eve, yeah.
Could not say the Lady Eve to save my life right now, but every time I watch that movie, it is like a nice warm bath. It's just so joyful. It's like watching Singing in the Rain, you know? You're like, wow, somebody was good at making movies back then.
Right.
I mean, the Apartment is also up there. Like, I could watch The Apartment any day of my life.
Billy Wilder, no slouch either.
Yeah.
What is your favorite horror movie franchise?
Favorite? Evil Dead.
Nice. Thought you might say Nightmare based on what you said you watched it a lot as a kid, but yeah.
No, it was weird. Like, even as a kid, I was like, man, some of these are stupid. And then growing up and rewatching them, you go, yeah, some of these are stupid.
Yes.
Well, I think that might be the fastest anyone's ever answered that question, because it throws people, because a lot of people are like, well, I like one movie in this series the best, but it as a franchise as a whole, but yeah.
I'll come clean with you guys right now. I've seen only the very first Halloween with John Carpenter. I've seen all the Nightmare on Elm Street. I've never seen a Friday the 13th, I don't think. I've seen Freddy versus Jason. But yeah, okay. I might have seen like a Jason X or something, but like there is no memory in my brain of seeing
I see. So what you're saying is you're not qualified to answer that question.
No, I'm saying everybody.
I think he'd still go with Evil Dead based on
personal about myself in order to let other people know it's okay if you've missed some big genre touchdowns.
No, it totally is. And that's the thing, like genre gatekeeping is really stupid. So
absolute dumbest. But also Evil Dead 2 is the greatest movie or horror movie of all time. And then you watch Army of Darkness, you're like, you guys went in a totally different direction. And I also still love this.
Yeah. Army is a personal, like, childhood favorite of mine.
I rode a bike with my brother, like racing against the time, and like picked up some free, like, fun-sized sun chips that they were sampling at the time because they were a new product. And I watched Army of Darkness. Like, I distinctly remember being a small boy.
Oh, what is your favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie that is not Lionheart?
Why you got to do that to me? It's Time Cop. I know it's Time Cop. We all know it's Time Cop. Time Cop is great. But I mean, there's a lot of good Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. But I own a personal 35 millimeter print of Time Cop because I like Time Cop that much.
How many
Nice.
times can we fit Time Cop in 1 minute?
Wait, who's the bad guy in that? Oh,
That was Ron Silver.
Bad
Yeah.
guy
Yeah,
from Time Cop.
In a vein of actors we've mentioned already on this show, what is your favorite? This is a two-parter. Favorite Nicolas Cage movie? Favorite Nicolas Cage performance?
See, these are the hardest questions I'll ever get. I think if I was going to go with my favorite, just if I'm going to put in a Nicolas Cage movie and watch it, I'd probably watch Face Off or The Rock, because those are like fully complete, excellent movies with wonderful Nicolas Cage performances in them. But I don't know, I don't ever want to discount stuff like Adaptation, where he's just incredible in it, or, Vampire's Kiss, or any of his weird things. I just get into them. They're very, very good. I love Matchstick Men. I can't answer this question. This isn't a rapid fire fair question. They're all my favorites.
Fair
that's a
enough.
legit
From the
answer.
guy who has run a marathon of his stuffs.
Well, I never wanted to repeat any of the movies at the marathon. So everyone had an entirely different 5 movie lineup. And so that year was my favorite 5 movies at that time.
It's
Do you remember what they were?
constantly evolving.
Do you remember the order? Since you said you ended with Lionheart for the Van Damme one, do you remember how you spread out the Cage ones?
Oh man, I'd have to think about it, because the first year I got way too in my head, because I opened with Vampire's Kiss and I had Con Air in there. But I think year 2 is the one where I just played nothing but bangers. And then year 3 is where I went with some weird ones. But I'm trying to remember all of them. I remember Cage he asked if he could curate the list for year 4. And he showed Bangkok Dangerous, Joe, Army of One. What's the one with Jared Leto that I can't remember the name of right now? Opens with the bullet being
Oh,
manufactured.
Lord of War?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm trying to remember what the 4th one was, because that was the 5th.
It's all good. I didn't mean to
But yeah,
break your brain.
no. I generally can remember all of them, but I have them all in my letterbox and stuff, to where I can always look back on them fondly.
Here's if this next question will also give you some heartburn. What is your favorite Steven Spielberg film?
Favorite Spielberg movie? Man, that's a tough one. I guess this is going to sound terrible, but probably Raiders. He's got I love AI, but probably Raiders. Got to say Raiders.
There's
that
many
sounds
correct
terrible.
answer for
Yeah.
this question.
Well, it's funny. My girlfriend, I found out, had never seen the movie AI, and so I put it on the other day, and she was like, "Why would you do this to me?" She was just a sobbing mess by the end. And then 3 days later, she's like, "I've never seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind." And I was like, "What?" So we watched that last night, and so she got all weepy again. But then she's like, "Can we watch Minority Report tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah." Geez, are you on a Spielberg kick? And she didn't realize she was on a Spielberg kick.
But she's on a heavier Spielberg kick. She didn't realize it.
But I've never seen The Color Purple. I can't say that.
Just thank you for being the first person to say AI in any capacity on the show. I am an ardent defender of that movie. I truly think it's a masterpiece. I think people completely misunderstood that ending and blamed it on Spielberg when that was Kubrick's
100%.
ending. But we'll get into that another time. Raiders is a great movie. Who is, if not someone mentioned already, who is your all-time favorite film director?
I think Terry Gilliam. It started with Time Bandits, and then I had these associations with Baron Munchausen, and then whenever I was a teenager and I went to the independent section of the video store, the cover for Brazil would always call to me, and then I watched that, and then I started watching all Terry Gilliam movies, and then figuring out that he was in Monty Python and he co-directed Holy Grail and stuff, and I was like, what a range that one solitary vision can cross all these different genres, from fantasy to sci-fi to medieval comedy. And it is an indelible stamp of what that director can do. And it always comes through no matter what. And it never deters from whatever the movie is, unless you want to argue about later Gilliam, but we don't need to do that.
We can argue later, lots of people, but no, you have a very similar trajectory as me, where I watched this couple of weirdo kid movies first that led me to Brazil. Although I think I was finding Monty Python around the same time, but still very similar way I discovered him. He did make some cool gateway weirdo movies for kids with Time Bandits. And
Yeah, man. Even if you go back and watch some of the ones that people say they don't love, you're like, I don't know. What is it? Cabot? No, what is it? The one with the
Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
Yeah, thank you. There, you're showing up for me in a big way today, and I appreciate it. But yeah, even if you go back and watch that movie, it's a lot better than you remember it.
think 12 Monkeys was my first Terry Gilliam experience as a kid.
12 Monkeys,
which was probably
insane.
not the best introduction as a child. I don't know when year. Yeah, I was like 8 when that came out or something. So my parents let me watch whatever I wanted.
Like 96 or something.
Yeah, 95, 96, something. 95.
Yeah, peak Brad Pitt, sexiest man alive, and he goes, "Make me look ugly as shit."
Yeah. You gotta respect that.
Oh, I have nothing but respect. I did It's the Pits at the Draft House before the pandemic hit, where we watched nothing but Brad Pitt movies.
Awesome. So, what would be a dream project for you to edit? Like, is there a specific genre, a filmmaker you want to work with, or a type of film that you'd like to tackle that you haven't had a chance to yet?
One of like the coolest things was whenever I got to do the transition from working for the Draft House to working for Draft House Films. And they came to me and they were like, "Hey, will you make in-house trailers for us, but you can't work at the Draft House anymore?" And I was like, "Okay, that sounds super fun." And they're like, "Hey, watch this movie. We're thinking about buying it." And I watched Mood Indigo, which was a Michel Gondry movie. And I was just so excited to get to cut a trailer for a Michel Gondry movie. So I think it would be like incredibly nuts to work with somebody that has such like a tactile nature, but a creative mind that is editing while they're shooting, to where it would be really fun to get to put those pieces together. But as far as like genres and stuff, it like because I did The Pale Door, which was, horror Western. I'm on a movie that is a horror movie. Like, I think it would be interesting to try other stuff, like sci-fi would be really fun, or like just doing like a drama might be really refreshing, just to kind of get to live with the performances more and think less about the machinations of who's doing what, when, and where, and juggling action and things like that.
So we put some pressure on you, ask you your favorites of things, but I feel like you have a few off the tip of your tongue on this question. What do you think is the best movie trailer of all time, or at least the top few that always come to mind when you're like, that's a movie trailer that you would show somebody to show the art of a movie trailer?
I mean, I feel like it's going to be everybody's answer, but I feel like of like a recent one that really kind of just like took my breath away was like Fury Road. Like, you watch that trailer and you're like, it's such a well-made trailer that sells exactly what that movie is and gets you jacked up about it in all the right ways. I mean, I think Marvel does really good trailers, but those are all done in-house at Disney, but they're all really, really good. I'm trying to think of some, because like the first thing that I do every day whenever I'm not working on a feature is I sit down with a cup of coffee and I go to the internet and I watch every single trailer that came out that day, whether it's, a direct to Lifetime streaming or anything, just because like I want to see kind of the pervasive rhythms of stuff, or see a trick that I want to steal, like all sorts of stuff. So like my mind is just kind of a cloudy mess of them right now. But I mean, like, I remember watching the Cloud Atlas trailer and just having my breath completely taken away because somebody was bold enough to put out like a 3.5 minute trailer. But even after watching a 3.5 minute trailer, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to get out of that movie, but I'm going to get a lot.
There's certainly a lot going on in that movie, so 3.5 minutes didn't cover it.
I am a big Cloud Atlas defender.
Yeah, this is not indicative of the man who has polarizing opinions on it, but the one that like took my breath away in that same vein when it came out in the theater that I almost got like emotional at, and again, not commentary on the movie, was Malik's Tree of Life. I remember the first time that trailer played in the theater, I was like, oh my God, what just happened? I just felt like I went through the week, because, it's all the crazy imagery from dinosaurs to present, and almost weird Americana shots and stuff going on. It just like affected me. I was like, what the fuck just happened?
This is a story about Cam, because I've hung out with him and he knows me.
Fuck him.
But after they had a premiere of Scare Package here in town, me and our composer friend had gone to watch the movie. And then we went out to like the premiere party and, had a beer and hung out. And then I was like, hey, do you guys want to come back to my house and drink some whiskey and play this really stupid game? And it's this stupid editor game I came up with. And it's where one of you connects to my TV with your phone and somebody else with their Spotify, and you guys don't talk. And one person plays a trailer and the other person plays a song, and you watch what the juxtaposition does. And in that same vein, I frequently, whenever I'm playing this game with my girlfriend, will put on the Tree of Life trailer, because it doesn't matter what song she picks, it makes her cry.
That's amazing. I was going to ask how you feel about like the slowed down cover.
I hate
songs.
it. I hate it.
Oh, that was going to be a bonus question. Is like, what's the most tired trope in trailers these days? Because I know a lot of people always cite the blong,
the horn.
It's gone all the way back to Alien. I mean, the siren type sounds. But yeah,
you guys can edit this out if it's uninteresting. But it was interesting for me because I watched the trailer for Gunpowder Milkshake, and I was like, oh man, like, that looks like a cool John Wickian style movie. And then I actually sat down and watched it on Wednesday when it came out last week. And I was like, I don't like this movie. It is very clunky and poorly done. And then I went back and watched the trailer again to go, what made you so excited to want to watch this in the first place? And I was just impressed with the editing skills in the trailer, because all of the like bad fight choreography and all of the hits that don't hit in the movie are 100% re-edited to deliver in the trailer.
Wow. That's actually really cool. Kudos to the trailer editor.
No, I was just like, hats off to this guy. He saw something was broken, but he knew how to sell it anyways.
Yeah. So transitioning to a totally different topic, is there a...
Your mother.
Oh, I hope not with this question. Is there a celebrity death that hit you the hardest or harder than you were expecting?
I mean, there's been a lot of real rough ones. Like, I feel... it feels weird to single out this one because there's been so much tragedy, especially in the past year, as far as like indelible screen presences that we've lost. But I think like when you asked that, the first thing that came to mind was Heath Ledger, just because, and I don't want to tie it back to Imaginarium, Dr. Parnassus, but he was young. He was like a little bit older than me. He was this blossoming like superstar. And then all of a sudden it was just like snuffed out without any sort. Because like whenever you say goodbye to like somebody like Burt Reynolds, you're like, that's awful. Like Burt Reynolds is the fucking best, but also Burt Reynolds had a very long and fulfilling life. And so I think like the Heath Ledger one, it came at like a weird time in my life where it just kind of like punched you right in the gut. Yeah,
for sure. There's something always tragic about, someone dying young that's especially so talented and so close after kind of some very iconic performances too.
For sure.
Well, a lighter spin on that same question. Who was your first celebrity crush? Who really gave you that? I feel like it's awakening.
Jennifer Connelly from Opportunity Knocks.
That is, her in anything is not an incorrect answer, in my opinion.
And it's like, you were like, okay. And you were in love with her from Labyrinth. But then whenever you watched, no, it's not Opportunity Knocks, it's Career Opportunities.
Career Opportunities, yeah. I know exactly. The very scene, much like Phoebe Cates in Fast Times, there's a very particular scene where she's riding one of those...
riding a horse.
The horse you put the quarter in that people cite very often as like, oh, wait, I feel something downstairs.
Yeah, I'm 11.
So... You're a native of Ottawa, Ontario. Who is
Correct.
The coolest famous person to hail from your hometown?
I'm trying to think of like people that are actually from Ottawa, because everybody's from Toronto or ends up in Toronto. And so I'm not sure I can think of somebody who's properly from Ottawa, because
Justin Trudeau, Dan Aykroyd, and Greg McLennan. I'm going to say that's the top three.
I'd say Dan Aykroyd, because whenever I was a kid, we would go rent a cottage on the lake for like a week. And it was just like a campgrounds where people had RVs, they had cabins there, and like everybody just kind of like hung out and play like capture the flag and stuff at night. Like it was just like a big hangout, but there was an island off in the lake. And we called it Aykroyd Island because apparently Dan Aykroyd owned that whole island. There's nothing on his island. It's just a large piece of land that apparently Dan Aykroyd owned. That it was
that man's a weirdo.
my most youthful connection to celebrity when I was like, the guy from Ghostbusters owns that island. Oh, I'm so close to famous right now.
Well, that's your home, but you have become a convert to Austin, Texas. If you're not a vegetarian, we will ask you what your favorite / go-to barbecue spot is in or around the Austin area.
I think Le Barbecue probably is the greatest ease of access for the greatest return on enjoyment.
What spot? Sorry?
It's called Le Barbecue.
Oh, Le Barbecue.
Le Barbecue.
And then you're le tired afterwards.
And he phrased it well. It is the best bang for the buck and most convenient because you can't always just drive out to Lockhart for...
Yeah, or you can't go to I like going to Smitty's if I'm going to go out to Lockhart. If somebody's got some Franklin, I'm going to eat it. But if somebody's like, hey, let's go get barbecue, I'm like, we should go to Le Barbecue.
I've never been. I'll have to do that next time.
They opened up a brick and mortar. It's on the east side. I highly recommend you go. The ladies who run it are lovely.
Ah, I will. As soon as I'm in Austin again.
Right.
If you were to program a double feature for editors, something that really showcased stellar editing, what would it be?
Number one is Bob Fosse's All That Jazz. And number two, trying to think, man. I feel like probably throw like a Gilliam in there or something, just because that dude does weird things. Because you can watch Fosse completely blow you away, and then you can watch like The Fisher King and have it completely move you in like an entirely different way. But I don't know. Well, those two actually would go really well together.
Yeah, that's not the worst pairing, even in that order.
It'd be a real dark day, but they really dovetail well into each other.
Yeah, no, All That Jazz gets cited a lot. I remember when they did like the Guild put out like the best edited movies, and I don't know, it was AFI or something associated, but I remember All That Jazz was like in the top 5. And
well, yeah, I mean, you read those lists where people are like, Citizen Kane, the greatest film of all time, and then you watch Citizen Kane, you're like, well, I get it. Like, it's not my favorite film, but like, I get why everybody thinks it's good. But then if you sit down and watch All That Jazz, and if you watch All That Jazz specifically because you're like, I hear this is the best edited movie, and then you watch, you go, I have no argument to make.
Yeah, it's pretty. I just saw it for the first time like 2 years ago, and I was blown away by it. Went down like my own like Fosse kick and started finding more movies of his.
Yeah, man, Bob Fosse movies are insane.
And then you learn that Michael Jackson ripped off his entire dance moveset from Bob Fosse.
Yeah,
and it's really
now there's stories of Michael Jackson used to go to video stores and just rent tons of old musicals because all he would do is lift stuff. Like
Becky, I'll have to send you a clip.
Is only him stealing stuff from like Fred Astaire.
I feel like I have new weekend homework now.
I'll send you a bunch of links, Becky.
Okay, thank you.
And finally, what would be your walk-up music if you were coming up to the stage for your TED Talk, or if you were maybe a fighter or a ball player? What song are you entering to? What's getting the crowd hyped up for Greg McLennan?
I will say I was once able to do this because there's a film festival here in town called Fantastic Fest, if you guys are familiar.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've
part of that is...
Becky fought in the fights there. We're multi-time attendees.
Okay. Well, I didn't know we were of the same brethren. I fought twice at the Fantastic Fest debates, and I got to come out to Hearts on Fire, and it was the greatest feeling in the world.
That's a good one, yeah.
I'm singing it in my head right now.
The first time I fought, I was saying that Sylvester Stallone is the greatest of all time, was what the prompt was that I had to defend. And so I actually just came out to James Brown's Living in America, but I had my buddy dress up like James Brown from the 80s, and he was throwing like headbands and money in the air. And then the next time it was that Rocky IV was the greatest sports film of all time. So I came out to Hearts on Fire.
Of course, no other option there.
No.
Was the person arguing against you that it wasn't, or did they have a different sports movie like Rudy or something?
No, they had the full breadth of everything to argue.
Oh, it was Rocky IV versus The Field?
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I hope you got your ass kicked.
No.
I dismantled that man in the verbal debates. And then for my final rebuttal, I said, just one moment. And then Dolph Lundgren came out and just leaned into the microphone and he goes, he will break you. And then the guy who was way bigger and way better at fighting than me beat the shit out of me, where I was like bleeding profusely from the face. But the crowd gave me the Vic for having the heart.
I was going to say, you won figuratively, even if he won physically by having. I mean, the memory of that night for people was that Dolph Lundgren came out and.
I rolled out of my bed the next day and went to go get an X-ray because I had a cracked sternum. But I walked around with a great deal of pride in my life for the next forever.
Wow. For the next forever. I love that.
So they can change and you can change.
No, I still see this guy, Wilchester, who cracked my sternum, who asked me for some of my pain pills because I had hurt him as well, which made me feel quite good. But I'll randomly scream at him and I go, "What's the greatest sports film of all time?" And he goes, "Rocky IV, fuck you."
We conceded.
We settled this. You
did win in your life. Nice. Well, that is the end of the Rapid Fire 15. You did an amazing job. We love some of those answers.
Thank you for the encouragement. I like Becky's more subdued response.
I said we did it.
I thought you said you did good, and I was like, yeah, all right.
You did change. We changed the world, like at the end of Rocky IV.
You were fine. Yeah, you were totally fine.
Oh, fine, huh? That's fighting words for whenever.
You're gonna see a Fantastic Fest and be like, "No, man, you were great. You were great that time."
So you talked about this a little bit. Right now, you're working on another project. When can people expect to hear more about that project, or kind of maybe see some announcements? Do you know?
Yeah, they've already done like announcements. It's a movie called Margot, directed by Stephen C. Miller, and it's a wild one.
Awesome. We'll be looking forward to that.
Indeed.
Yeah, I was like, don't ask me whenever something's going to be announced. I still have to make the movies. So that's putting my
Exactly. And where can people find you online? Do you have social media handles you'd like to share or website or anything like that?
I made it my last name, so it's hard to find, but it's at the McLennan on Twitter, which is the easiest way to get a hold of me, I guess. But if you go to electricowlcreative.com, you can see a bunch of my trailers. I don't want to give you my phone number because I don't think anybody's going to call and it will just end up in disappointment. But you guys can find me around.
Well, you could at least provide your social security number.
Oh, yeah. My Canadian or American?
Both for good measure.
And where do I send the Bitcoin for thanking you guys for having me on?
Yeah, to the Prince of Nigeria.
Again?
But we'll be sure to link to anything you gave us in show notes at paperstreetpodcast.com, and folks can find you there. We appreciate all the answers, all the bits about editing, and thank you so much for the time. We know you're a busy guy, and we're trying to get you out of here on your heart out. We've almost got you down to the wire here. So.
I got to talk about editing for an hour with people that were curious, as opposed to just telling people about it until their eyes glaze over and they don't want to listen to me anymore. So it was a privilege for me. So thank you very much for having me on.
No, glad to have you, and we know you'll be working with Paper Street again sooner than later in here. And
certainly hope so.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time.
Yes, thanks for sharing the dark art of editing and programming and a little insight into the behind the scenes at the Draft House. And
happy to discuss with you guys whenever, wherever, or you can just ask me stuff on Twitter and I'll answer it.
All right. Thank you, Greg. We'll be in touch with you soon, I'm sure, and on the lookout for your new feature. Can't wait to see what you do
thanks,
next.
Guys. I am very excited to share what I'm doing next.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.